Hello and welcome to Author's Feet, a literary program focusing on authors, their works and their stories. I am your host, Empress Ciku Mwaniki. It has often been claimed that authors are very good liars. Of course, I disagree, not because I'm an author myself, but because I'm a very bad liar. I think authors are amazing at escaping reality, so they create spaces they can escape to. I think authors are a bit of cowards. I should have said that slowly, because they want to do stuff, but because they can't do it, then they create characters that can do the stories themselves. They can do the stuff themselves. And today, I'm going to ask our guests if she's a good liar or she's a criminal wannabe because she writes crime stories. Welcome to the program, Ciku Kimeria.
Thank you, Shiko. It's an honor to be here.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
So you're an author. You love writing crime stories.
Yes.
I know you're an editor. Your work, I tried to go through your body of work and I could not. I think if you give me a year, I wouldn't be able to do it. So I don't know how you do that. But tell me, are you a good liar or a criminal wannabe?
I am a terrible liar, so I would say I'm a criminal wannabe. That would be the best way of defining it, because as you say, the genre is mystery. So I like imagining scenarios. I kind of like imagining, like, okay, what if you are, if I think of my latest novel, Dance of the Monkeys,
Yeah.
I imagine the scenario of, maybe you have gone for a bridal shower or an engagement party that felt a bit off, but the fiction author in me thinks, how off could this be? Maybe that person who was jilted from being the best maid is much angrier than she actually is. And maybe there's a gate crasher, and that should be a dangerous situation. So with fiction, you just try and imagine how, you make things bigger. So you take a mundane situation and then you make a big deal out of it.
So you, instead of enjoying parties, you imagine these things the characters will do. That's amazing. I do the same things. I would really laugh at you. Tell me, what are you reading at the moment?
So I'm reading a book by Petina Gapa. It's called Not Out of Darkness. Oh my God, that name is really hard. But anyway, I'll remember the name by the time we get to the end. And what she does, so Petina Gapa is a Zimbabwean writer. And I think she's also a brilliant historian. So what she does is, in history, the way we used to learn about Livingstone.
Yeah.
And we'd learn about Livingstone, all the journeys he took, how he explored the continent, how he opened it up for the Europeans. So she uses all that material, but then she tells the stories of the Africans who traveled with him. So in history, they just give, they explain, he went here, he went to Livingstone, he went here, he discovered the Victoria Falls. Then they say, oh, and by the way, he had Chuma and Susi, who were his assistants. They give them a very minor role. But the truth was that when Livingstone died, somewhere, I think it's called the village of Chitambo, somewhere in Zambia, I believe, there was a group of 76 Africans who then carried his body. They buried his heart where it was.
Yeah.
And then they carried his body all across the continent to Bagamoyo in Tanzania. So now she tells this voyage from the story of Chuma, Susi, but also from the story of Halima, who was his cook. So it's actually retelling. And it's if you like travel writing, if you like adventure,
and you're a traveler.
History.
You travel a lot, I know that. How has traveling impacted your writing?
Traveling for me has been a huge inspiration, because every time I travel, I realize, especially I've gone to 56 countries globally.
Oh my God.
23 in Africa.
Envious much.
23 in Africa, and I've loved traveling. And I think when I travel, you realize that people are different, but also there's a lot about us that's the same. So even if I go to, I lived in Senegal for the past 6 years. So when I lived in Senegal, there might be some things of their culture that are so different from Kenyan culture, but there's elements of humanity that are the same throughout the continent. So there's elements of your family ties versus you wanting to have independence. There's elements of what society expects of you versus what you want for yourself. There's elements of, love, friendship, wanting the best for your families, wanting the best for your children and your loved ones and so on. So I think for me, traveling it shows me again that there's, even if I'm writing stories from the Kenyan perspective, because my two fiction novels
Yeah.
are based in Kenya, even though I'm telling Kenya stories from the Kenyan perspective, there's elements that should be relatable to anyone, even someone in Iceland.
Sorry, so for instance, if you took Dance of the Monkeys
Yes.
and changed the names of places and the names of people to like Senegalese names,
Yeah.
would it still be like a story relatable to Senegal, like for instance?
I believe there'll be so many elements that will be relatable, because everywhere there will be weddings, there
Yeah.
will be, jealousy that comes around certain events. There'll be elements of people who are posers wherever you are on
Yeah.
earth, whether you're in Senegal,
Yeah.
Iceland.
Yeah.
There'll be elements of trying to fit in, trying to appear to be who you're not. So I think those are universal things. So maybe people might not understand some intricacies.
Yeah.
Like if you talk about, oh, there's a rorashio, people might not understand
Right.
what is a rorashio. But if you say, oh, it's a pre-wedding ceremony, there'll be something similar to that across the not across the continent, across the world.
Across the world. You're an editor.
Yes.
But you've got like a degree in management,
Yeah.
in management. I was trying to understand how these. So, did you have to give up one for the other, or did you find a way to merge the two, or how did you land to where you were?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a very good question, because you're asking me to make it make sense. So let me try and make my career path make sense. So
In very few words. Yeah.
In very few words, yes.
Yes.
Born and raised in Kenya, went to study in the US, got my undergraduate degree from MIT in finance and in urban planning, and I proceeded never to use them. So I moved back to Kenya, worked for 6 years in strategy consulting. And strategy consulting, you can have studied anything. There's no particular expertise that you need to be a consultant. Then within 6 years, I had a bit of an existential crisis, because I started wondering, I was thinking to myself, is my legacy going to be my slides? What slides I made, what presentations I made? I didn't feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
But the job was interesting, the pay was good, so I didn't know what to do. And I had very crazy insomnia, and throughout my insomnia was when I wrote my first novel.
Oh.
And as I wrote it,
Of
I
Goats
felt
and Poisoned Oranges. Yeah.
Exactly. And as I wrote it, I felt such joy, because my style of writing, I'm the type of person who might not write fiction for years, and suddenly the muse will come and I can't sleep. I have my notebook everywhere. It just, when it comes, it comes. And that's what happened in the first novel. So I did it, I self-published, and then I started moving out of strategy consulting. At least my company allowed me they needed an Africa communication manager, so I took on that regional role, and it was part-time, which allowed me now to go for festivals. So I really marketed the first book. I went for festivals. I was, talking about the book, doing all the marketing I could, and then also transitioning from strategy consulting to communication consulting. I did eventually leave my company, but I moved in 2016. I moved to Senegal, so still with the company, but mostly because I loved Senegal. 2018, I left the job and I kept on working with my own communication consulting clients. So it's also as if throughout the process, I was just making it make sense.
Yeah.
And in 2016, also, I started writing a lot of articles for different publications.
Like that's where your work is so much.
Abundant.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a lot.
Yes, I think I've written more than hundreds of articles, sometimes on travel, sometimes on struggles of visas, arts and culture, so everything. And then
those things you went through, like the visa thing, those are things you've experienced during your travels. So you decided to turn them into
nonfiction. Exactly. So someone looking at my life path might wonder, how did this connect? And I guess at those points it didn't connect. Now in retrospect, it makes sense because of all the articles I wrote. I took on the role right now. I'm the Africa editor at Quartz, which is a media house that focuses on technology, innovation, and business.
Yeah.
And I'll be leaving. Actually, I'm outgoing. I'm the outgoing editor, but I'm moving to another media house, Global Press Journal, as the Africa editor. So it's almost
congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you've got a very good. You kind of get very good job. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they allow you to work from anywhere, everywhere.
Yes, all my jobs have allowed me, especially since leaving strategy consulting.
Yeah,
they've always allowed me to work from anywhere, everywhere. The Global Press Journal is even going to be part-time, so they'll allow me to do my various side hustles, including writing. My fiction writing.
Yeah, you can decide to write on a story in South Africa, so you just move to South Africa, and that is so lucky.
Exactly.
I read these two books.
Yes.
Beautiful work. I love them. I love the intricates. I love how you tie the loose ends. And they're very entertaining. This one I read, Dance of the Monkeys. I read it in 2 days, which I haven't done in a long time. But there was something about it that just, I couldn't put it down.
Yeah.
Tell me about the journey of,
Writing.
let's I know I should ask you about this one, but let's
No, we can
talk
talk
about
about
this one.
Dance of the
Yeah,
Monkeys.
let's talk about this one.
So the journey of Dance of the Monkeys, I started writing it in 2016, I think 2017, and I had an idea of the beginning scene. So that's what usually happens with my novels. I have an idea of this beginning scene. I have no idea where the book is going. I just keep on writing, and as I write, just see me thinking, "Oh, this is exciting! I'm discovering it the same way the reader is excited. Is
Do you think the
discovering it."
character drives you on? No.
Yeah. Or someone, I don't know if someone is telling me, okay, the next page, but I'm not the type of writer who sits and knows everything. I just start as the process
Yeah.
goes along. So I began it in 2017. I thought I had a pretty strong draft within the first year, but I'm thankful that actually now I have many writer friends. I have a lot of communities that have helped enrich my work.
Yeah.
So with this first one, when I thought I had a pretty strong draft, I shared it with all my friends. Most of who are not writers, so they mostly gave feedback on, oh, I enjoyed this, all this part, but they didn't really give editorial feedback, which is okay.
Yeah.
Then, because I lived in Senegal, I had a few friends. One, she's called Aisha Haruna Atta. She's a Ghanaian novelist. Another friend is called Jory Lewis. She's an African-American nonfiction writer. She recently wrote a book called Slaves for Peanuts. And then there's also a Ugandan writer called Nansubuga Isdal. She's based in...
She's your friend.
Yes.
Tell us much again.
Nice. So they said, we came together and said, because everyone was working on completely different manuscripts, but needed a community. So we said, okay, every month we'll have a call or we'll meet in person, because the three of them lived in Senegal. We meet in person and everyone has to bring 10,000 or 5,000 to 10,000 new words for us to critique. And Chico, I'm telling you, it was such a game changer.
Yeah.
Because the manuscript that I told you I started with thinking it's very strong. When I was working with these writers, I realized, oh my gosh, there's so many loopholes.
Yeah.
Yes, this part doesn't make sense. Oh yeah, this part, why is it there?
Yeah.
So it was a process of, I remember Jory saying, kill your darlings, because there's a certain idea in the book I had. I really love this part. And she told me, it's not working with the rest of the flow.
No.
So honestly, being that group, it changed the process.
Yeah.
Then during COVID, a Kenyan friend of mine, he asked me to apply to join a group. He had a writer friend, a US-based writer friend, who was running a program for writers who have 70% of their books done. It was so specific, when something is for you.
Yeah.
Because by this time now I was getting feedback from the group, but I was still not, I love writing, I don't like rewriting.
Yeah.
So I still had 30% of the book that I needed to write, and I was just losing morale. And he told me, yes, join this group. And I joined that group, and it was a 1.5-month program. That one we weren't looking at each other's work, but every week you had to commit to a certain number of words. And that's how, because sometimes the meeting would be in 3-4 hours. That whole week I'm done, no writing. And then I would sit and suddenly I would do the best writing of the... So it forced me to...
work better under pressure then.
I think so. And I don't like disappointing people. So if it's with myself, I might say, oh yeah, I'll write it soon. But if I have a deadline from someone else, I feel so bad not to deliver. So it's what pushed me to get to the end. So
is that something you do again? Like, I'm assuming you have a book coming soon. Yeah. Is that something you do again, like get involved in a community of writers? And
yes, I think it's important for any writer, because you should feel that... I really admire writers who have a huge body of work. Those people who, by the time they die, I hope that's my Wikipedia page. It says she was the author of 20 novels. I find it so exciting that someone committed to writing that much work. I think you should get to the point where at any point when you look at your first novel or your second, when you're further down the line, you should feel, oh gosh, I could have done better. And you keep doing better. Because you should be growing. If you're writing in the same exact way as you were when you started your first
absolutely.
book,
but that builds the pressure as well. How is that pressure coming?
It's true.
You have pressure from yourself and from your readers who are like, she needs to give us something better. How is that pressure working?
I think that pressure will always be there, but it shouldn't stop you from writing, because the thing is, the pressure can become so much that you think, oh my God, I don't know if I can, deliver another book. But if you're a writer, you keep writing. And even some of the biggest, most successful writers, they've had some books where the public reception has been meh. But if you as a writer, you felt happy and you felt, I've done the best I can, I'm pleased with the book, you shouldn't judge yourself based on what happens afterwards.
Yeah.
And it's a good question, because also sometimes, I know one of the things you had asked me another time was, okay, have you ever received negative criticism?
Absolutely.
You should. You should receive negative criticism as
What did you do
a
with
writer.
yours?
The great part was, a lot of the negative criticism I got was before the book came out. But even after the book came out, there are some reviewers who will say, I didn't like this, I didn't like that. And you should not get demoralized,
No.
because you should just say, you know what? Everyone has a right to an
You
opinion.
can't please them all.
You can't please them all. But if you have the dedication to sit down, write, and come out with 50,000, 80,000, 1,000 words, at least you're doing something. You know that saying about the man in the arena?
Yep.
Sometimes it's much easier to, not that criticism should be taken badly, but sometimes it's much easier to criticize when you're not doing something. But the people who are doing it, I have admiration. Even if someone writes a book that's not that amazing, I still have to say, but they committed to
It's
it.
the commitment. It's huge.
Yeah.
It's a huge commitment. I have monkeys here and I have goats here. What is this about your books and animals?
I like the question on, do I like, okay, I do love animals, but that's not where the titles came
Yeah.
from. I think for both, my mother she's not a writer, but my mother is a huge inspiration for my storytelling. If you sit with my mom, she will make you laugh so hard. She just has the funniest stories.
Yeah.
She'll tell you about, even if you ask her, oh, mommy, how's your day? Oh, I left the house, and then she'll narrate to you the whole day. But the way she'll narrate to you, it becomes, so I got my flair for storytelling from my mom. And she gives us a lot of stories in Kikuyu, and also gives us she talks in proverbs. So Dance of the Monkey, so of Goats and Poisoned Oranges, it came from the fact that it's dealing with middle-aged couples, problematic marriage and more things. But Goats was, bori, like bringing, because it had, goats for us
ratio
means,
and
exactly. So goats for Kikuyu really has that implication of marriage. And then the oranges is because of toshugwas. So toshugwas being,
now I get it. I didn't get it because I kept looking at them. I was like, Dance of the Monkeys, Poison Goats and Oranges. Now it makes sense. Is the next one coming with an animal as well?
So when we get there,
You haven't decided. So do you decide your titles after?
Sometimes when I write, it has a working title, but it's almost a placeholder. Because as I told you, even when I start the book, I don't know where it's going to go. Then now it comes together. So Goats and Poisoned Orange, and then the poisoned parts was because, they're all problematic.
Yeah.
Dance of the Monkeys, I had mostly written it. Then I went to, I'm a believer in fate. I went to visit my auntie. And my auntie out of nowhere was giving a story, and she gives this proverb, a Kikuyu proverb about in the dance, like if you're in a dance of monkeys, be careful that no one steps on your tail. And I've never had that.
I think you put it somewhere here in the book.
Yeah,
I saw that somewhere there.
Exactly.
Yes,
I'd never had it, but I loved it because it captured for me the idea that if you're in this dangerous situation as the engagement party is, you should not be surprised if something goes wrong. Or if it's kind of the same, like, even in Kenya, the way people say, hey, if you enter wash, things can happen when you're there because you've now entered a system that is dangerous.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give that idea. If you're in these dangerous situations, don't be surprised if something happens.
And your covers are really beautiful and simple and bold. Do you do them yourself?
The first one of Goats and Poisoned Oranges, that one was myself, my sister, my mom in the house, and we said, oh, we have some oranges. Oh, those are those oranges, not even pretty ones.
Yeah.
We just put them in a pan and put them on the cooker, and that was where that picture came from.
This is a picture. I thought it was like I thought it was art. Somebody drew them.
It's a picture.
So these are cooked oranges.
No, just oranges sitting on a pan just like that. But then we did, my sister, I think, put a filter.
Okay.
Yeah, those were just the oranges in a pan.
Beautiful. The
second one was done by Wangare Nyanjui of the Peruka.
Okay.
So she's one who does, the t-shirts, the caps with leo kuna jua ya mvua.
Yes. Or the memes, the Kenyan memes and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Okay.
So someone told me she does book covers, and I asked her, Wangari, will you do a book cover for me? And I gave her the idea of, I think I just gave her a short version of what the book is about.
Yeah.
And she
came up with this.
The cover.
You're self-published.
Yes.
Why did you go that route? I love asking this question because I find it's the route a lot of Kenyans, new writers are going.
Yeah.
And I think any answer would be, the answers would be really helpful to also why
Why
self-publishing.
self-published? The first one I self-published because I completely did not know anything about the writing world, publishing world, or anything. So I didn't even know, how do you find an agent? How do you find a publisher? I knew none of that.
Yeah.
But I knew I just wrote the book, and then I put it, I think I edited, I got edited, put it on Amazon and Kindle, and people started buying it, and then it ended up becoming mainstream and being put in Kenyan bookshops. So that one, it's almost like I entered from the self-publishing world, then the book somehow went mainstream, and I consider myself fortunate because I do know a lot of
How did that
self-published
happen?
authors.
Was there is there a point you can a place you can point that this is where
It
the
ended up
flipping
happening.
point was?
The flipping point was, so I think the first bookshop that the book got into was Bookstop. So
Yeah.
the owner of Bookstop heard about the book, decided to stock it, even though I was self-published.
Yeah.
And then when the book was there, Modoni Garland walked in and she bought the book. And after she read the book, she invited me to Story Moja. And so I spoke at Story Moja. And
Awesome.
after that, so I can point to Bookstop, then Story Moja
Yeah.
being the two things that then afterwards I
Yeah.
just found myself becoming mainstream.
Yeah.
The second one I did want, and my future books, I do plan to do the formal process, like get an agent and publisher. But in the second one, I think I could have, but I released it a month before I had my daughter. So
So you needed to get it out of the way.
I wanted to get it out.
Yeah.
I know I could have sat with it for another year or two and maybe found gotten a better deal or something. But I just knew that after I have my daughter, I'll likely be such a different person that I won't be happy with the book from before. With each life stage.
I see what
I was
you mean.
This book from 2017 can't be getting published in 2024 or something.
Although I know a friend who got published 8 years later.
And she was happy with the...
Yeah, I think they were just happy to get it out of the way. It's like, I've been waiting for this long.
Yeah.
I'm just happy it's out.
But I imagine she had to rewrite so much, because if you look at something you wrote 2 years ago, you'll feel,
do you read your work? Do you read your work? Do you read back?
No.
Do you Google yourself?
Okay, I told you I'm a bad liar. Yes, sometimes I Google myself. Okay, that was a good question.
Yeah, it always catches people off guard.
It's a good question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you have all these experience in writing for articles and books and everything. If a new writer came up to you right now and asked you, what should I do to make my writing as good as yours, what would you say?
Okay, one thing I would first encourage is keep writing, because sometimes I get people will inbox and say, hi, I want to write, but they've not written. So it's harder for someone to help you if there's no, if there's no material.
Yeah.
Like if you approach someone and say, okay, I've written a manuscript, then you can kind of give them more useful feedback. But if you just ask me what's some advice for writing, I don't know. Like I feel, I don't know if it's the same for you, but I feel that if you're a writer, the drive to write is so strong that it comes, it doesn't always come naturally, but you should have already had some material to be written. So if you're asking, how do I write? Then maybe writing is not your thing at all. Because even if you have a bad manuscript somewhere, at least you have a manuscript or you have some short stories you've done. But if you want to be a writer but you've not written anything, then you should ask, do you really want to be a writer? Or are you feeling that maybe you're being told you should be a writer, but it's not your thing? Because I'm thinking of the equivalent. If you're a painter, at least that means you have, even if you didn't have material, you might have found charcoal, you might have, so there was something in you that made you know this is your thing.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's one big thing. Second, I would say is read widely. So I feel that as a writer, the more you read, I almost feel that it's more words in, more words out, but also more quality words out. So even with myself, I can feel that when I read more, you'll always improve your craft. Even I think a Nobel-winning writer can still write and read something and keep improving their craft. So you should never feel that I have arrived. You should always read widely. You should always, try and immerse yourself in different materials so that you can just see how are people doing things, and there might be something there that's for you.
Okay. When it comes like to marketing, I know your marketing strategy is not quite widely used here because you've had opportunities probably a lot of people here don't have, because you've had your travels, you've had the international exposure, you've had the face-to-face with the people in different countries, and you've been able to pitch your books and everything.
Yeah.
But do you think for somebody who does not have the same kind of exposure would be able to follow your path? Like, because I know for a fact that you're one of the best-selling authors in this country.
Thank you.
But yeah, and I know a lot of what our writers are struggling with is moving their
The
books.
Yeah.
How would you advise? And also, like, how did you get to all these people who are selling your book? How did you do it?
I think, so thank you. I think that's a great question. I feel that one thing you've touched on is somehow all these different parts of my life that don't seem to connect, they have helped, because even if because people knowing me sometimes for my professional work, then they find out, oh, you're a mystery novelist, then they want to read the book. Other times it might be that I have gone, I've traveled, I'm moderating an event, they hear me speaking, and then they ask, and it might not even be something about literature. Then they ask, oh, wait, you write. Then they hear about me that way. So I think that it would be unfair for me to say, oh no, I think anyone would have the same exact opportunities, because I do take into account all those things, as you've said, the traveling, the professional work, all those opportunities have brought me also potential customers. That said, though, I think you still have to almost have another element I have to say about myself is I'm kind of shameless. I'm the type of person who takes my books. Okay, I've slowed down, but I used to be the person who took my books everywhere. I'm going for a party, I have books in my bag.
I think it's important to be shameless.
You should be shameless.
Yeah, there's nothing to be ashamed of in being shameless.
Yes. And then I'll meet some writers who you even have to pull it from them that they write. You'll ask someone, oh, what do you do? Yeah. Maybe after 20 minutes into the conversation is when they'll say, and sometimes I write. So they're almost apologetic about their work. If you have to just have that attitude of own it. You're a writer. You have content. You have written. Tell people, yeah, I write. Oh, wait, you write? And then have it in your handbag or have it in your, backpack that here's a book, or here is, if you want to find some of my writing online, here's somewhere you can go. I think it really helps if you have a body of work and you keep on promoting it. Even I remember a funny story, but with Of Goats and Poisoned Oranges, I remember there was a night I was out. It was my birthday. So, I was out. Clearly, I'd had quite a few drinks on my birthday. And I still had books, because I have the memory of signing a book. So my birthday is November 10th. But I signed the book November 10th, 1984.
On your birthday.
Now
we know how old you are.
I know. I'm not ashamed.
Good.
I signed the actual birth date, but just to show you my determination. That was my birthday. I had been having quite a few shots of tequila, and I could still sign books at that night.
Yes.
So I have some level of
shamelessness. Go out there. Walk to bookshops?
No, but I did. When I launched the first book, so for the second book, how I ended up at Textbook Center was how I ended up at Textbook Center was through someone who knew me when I was at Story Moja. So I promote a lot. So once, especially on social media. With the second book, I have to say, given I just moved back from Senegal in 2022, I haven't done as much marketing as I could. So this year, I hope I start doing more. But I know when I launched the book, I was here in Kenya. As I said, it was around a month before my baby was born. And I put everywhere on social media, my book is coming out. So quite a few people ordered it. And so for Textbook Center, it was someone who, I think it was Textbook Center was someone who had seen me at Story Moja and who we had done a bit of, who and also had ordered his own copy when he saw I have my book. So I think those are the big connections that have happened, because once that happened, once it got to Textbook Center, it was Book of the Month for that December of 2020. Then Naivas started a writers program. So I think a lot of the opportunities that have come about is really because of visibility. So it wasn't that I took myself to the bookshop, but people just,
so by the time you get there, already somebody knows about you, and that makes it easier.
Exactly. Or I've marketed so much that because I do know that within the numbers in Kenya are not crazy, so I shouldn't be saying, oh, I sold that many books.
You mean you've sold your books out there more than you've sold here?
No. I mean that even the initial push I did of guys, my book is coming out, guys, my book is coming out. And given I couldn't do a book launch because I was quite heavily pregnant, I marketed so much and I sent books for delivery to people's homes. And at least when I launched the book, I sent around 300 copies within that first week to different people in Nairobi. So you can imagine those 300 people, there's quite a few who are people who connected me to bookshops. There's quite a few who told their book clubs about me. So I feel like once you plant those seeds and people start reading and it goes wider, that's how the opportunities come about.
The lesson is be shameless.
Be shameless.
Be seriously shameless.
Yes.
If you are an animal, what would you be?
Oh my God, if I was an animal, what would I be? You know what? I'll pick a lemur. The one like King Julian. Yes, I'll pick a lemur because even though there's many, I went backpacking many years back with a group of friends through Madagascar. And even though there are many, and Madagascar was lovely, but even though there are so many different species or different varieties of lemurs, they are only found in Madagascar. So I'll pick that to show that I believe everyone has a uniqueness about them and you need to lean into that. So I want to believe that I'm as unique as one of the types of lemurs.
Hopefully not as annoying as King Julian.
not as annoying as King Julian.
Okay.
But I would be a lemur.
Awesome.
Yeah. And they're cute.
If you could meet one writer who is not easily accessible, who would it be and what would you tell them?
Okay. I've been fortunate to meet many of the writers whose work I admire, but I'll pick one. She's a South African writer. She's called Angela Makolwa. And I think the reason I'll pick her is when I read her books, so I know she's a friend of a friend also. She's a good friend to Zukiswa. But every time I read her books, I feel, have you ever read someone's book and you feel as if you're sitting with them and laughing and they're telling you this story? So that's the reason I'd want to meet with her, because I remember she had a book called the 30 something. It was about women who are turning 30s. And I read that book right when I was turning 30 and it was amazing. Then I read another one that's called The Black Widow Society. She just has, her books are always so interesting, so funny, so relatable. So I think that's the reason I want to meet
what
her.
Would you tell her?
Like, I'll just ask her like how, okay, she also has a good body of work. So I'd ask her how she gets inspired to keep writing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll ask you to read for us maybe a couple of passages from each of the books.
Okay.
I'll let you pick.
Okay.
I'll follow your lead.
Okay, sounds good. So this is from Of Goats and Poisoned Oranges, which was my first novel. And it's right in the beginning, the prologue, page 1.
Page 1.
Yes. It really is a strange situation to find oneself in, that of attending your own funeral. If anyone had told me that the day would come when I would get to listen to my own eulogy, see old lost friends shed a tear for me, and notice the absence of those I had assumed would be at my funeral, I would have thought them mad. The questions running through my mind at this moment may appear trivial given the circumstances, but they're gnawing on my mind nonetheless. Who chose these funeral colors? Njogu knows how much I hate red. How could they omit my greatest accomplishments from the eulogy? You can never trust people to do things for you. Who is that woman sitting on the second pew with this ridiculous hat? Nearer, my God, to thee. Seriously, who's responsible for this lack of originality at my funeral? You always live your life expecting that the day they lay you down to rest will be unique, that the tears people shed for you will be more than they've ever shed before, that the eulogy will be a perfect rendition of all your successes, that the sun will stand still and the moon will stay in place as it did in the Bible when Joshua went to battle. Bollocks, all of it. In reality, your funeral program will have typos. Villagers will scramble for a copy to display on their walls. The professional mourner might put up a good show, but it will all fall through when in the midst of her pretend sorrow, she howls out the wrong name. The old lady next to her will remind her, Wamboy. She was called Wamboy. It is true what was said. That is the way the world ends, not with a big bang, but a whimper.
Love it. Love it. Okay.
Thank you. So the next one that I'm picking is from my recent novel, end of 2022, Dance of the Monkeys. Cling, cling.
Sorry, what page is that?
Oh, sorry. Page 226.
226.
Yeah. Okay.
I got got it. Yeah.
Yes, page 226. Kring, kring. Why are you trying to steal my husband? The lady on the phone asked. Rubbing sleep out of my eyes, I shot back. Who told you I'm trying to steal him? Maybe I'm borrowing him. I'll give him back to you when I'm done with him. Take that. Seriously, do people think side chicks don't need their quality sleep? To call me at this hour with stupid questions, not even bother introducing herself, as if she thinks she's the first woman in Nairobi with her husband who's being stolen. I had her stalling, likely surprised by my response. She tried to collect herself and finally said, Little girl, whoever you are, keep your filthy hands off JB. Do you hear me? Or else? Well, thank you, woman, for the clarification. At least now I don't have to sit here trying to rack my brain, trying to figure out who this was. I was not going to take this lying down, or let her hang up the phone thinking she had schooled me. Well, maybe if you didn't travel so much, if you didn't work so much, your husband might not have needed my company. I went for the jugular, feeling a tinge of guilt even as I did. Being a career woman myself, I felt terrible repeating this falsehood. What do you expect when you come home late half the time and the other half of the time you're in another country? A man gets lonely, I continued. The way I see it, you should be in fact thanking me for keeping your marriage alive. If it wasn't for me, your husband might actually be with someone else who wants to take him from you. Me, as I told you, I borrowed him to keep your bed warm while you are away. Shoo! Even I knew had gone too far to refer to the marital bed. But when you come for me like this at 3 a.m., don't expect me to play nice. I mean, did she think she can just call me with her stupid threats and I would start crying on the phone? Oh, madam, I'm so sorry. I'll never take someone's husband again. Oh, shame on me. Then after that, what? We now form a first wives, first mistresses club and commune, bound together by our own unfortunate circumstances. Then what next? I had seen what happens to apologetic mistresses. Next thing, the wife is taking you to her church and you are there at the altar giving one of those stupid testimonies of, Hi, my name is Jerry and I used to be possessed by the spirit of husband snatching. But ever since I accepted the Lord into my life, I have left people's husbands alone. All this while, the women in the congregation pull their husbands closer to them, realizing that they have a vixenish former husband still in their midst. I was not going to be one of those suckers. Once you choose the type of life I had chosen, you have to be unapologetic. Do not be shaken by these wives. They will tear you apart if they see any sign of weakness. Let them know that, yes, I have your man, and yes, I can take him for good if you annoy me enough.
Thank you. Tell me, are you an actress? Are you a performer?
No, I'm not, but I do love acting.
That was quite a performance. Thank you so much. Before I let you go,
Yeah.
parting shots.
Support writers. Keep reading their work. The same way we are beginning, we support Afrobeats musicians. The same way we are watching, our local movies, whether it's on Showmax, Netflix, everywhere. I want the same revolution to happen for African writers because if we want Africans to keep on telling our stories, we need to start also consuming their material. So please support African writers, buy their books, go for their book launches, tell people about it. Yeah, that would be my big parting shot.
Thank you so much, Ciku Kimeria. You've been a delight to have on the show.
Thank you.
Please write soon so that we can have an excuse to have you back.
Thank you.
And that's it for today. Thank you so much and see you next time. Bye-bye.